Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ronald Peacock, um, and this is Applying Critical Thinking to Strengthen Leadership at the Salvation Army Adult Rehabilitation Center. This is going to be brought to you by Ronald Peacock and Johnny Edwards. We work together on this assignment and this PowerPoint presentation, and I will be narrating the presentation. The third member of our group, Mr. Bradford, was unreachable, and so this presentation will be conducted by myself and Johnny Edwards. So welcome, everyone. Our team focused on how critical thinking can improve leadership practices at the Salvation Army. Throughout this presentation, we'll explore a leadership issue, analyze it using a critical thinking framework, and propose two solutions backed by leadership and diversity principles. So this is our organization overview. As I mentioned before, the organization that we chose is the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army, as most of us know, is a faith-based human services organization focused on rehabilitation. It plays a vital role in the community, but faces challenges that require clear thinking and strategic leadership. So some of the things that the Salvation Army does is provides housing, counseling, and work therapy for adults, specifically recovering from substance abuse. Their mission is to support recovery through compassion, structure, and purpose. Their staff is comprised of a mix of paid employees and volunteers serving diverse populations. So we're going to identify the leadership issue. And so the problem here, staff burnout and turnover due to poor communication and inconsistent leadership support. So again, the issue is not just overwork, it's leadership's limited use of critical thinking in addressing communication and motivation. Decisions are reactive rather than reflective, causing low morale. The evidence of that is increased staff exists within the past year, but there are unclear expectations and lack of recognition. So we believe that shows a leadership gap of over-reliance on transactional management versus critical reflection and empathy. I think the big thing that the Salvation Army needs to take a look at is paid employees and volunteers, and the balance between the two, understanding that everybody contributing to the organization is just as equally important, but finding that balance there to kind of get away from this turnover and burnout is going to be important going forward. And then, so applying critical thinking to leadership. So in human services, emotions often drive quick decisions. A lot of us have seen that in whatever position that we're currently in. And so critical thinking helps leaders take a step back, evaluate facts, and respond rather than react. Again, this is essential for ethical and effective leadership, as we've learned throughout this course. A little bit more on critical thinking. The idea is it means analyzing problems objectively, questioning assumptions, and making evidence-based decisions. Leaders who use critical thinking evaluate information from multiple perspectives before acting, meaning that you don't just hear one thing and react. You get the whole picture. The outcome of this is it improves fairness, communication, and trust in your team. And that's especially important in a team like the Salvation Army that's mixed up of paid employees and volunteers. So our group followed Davis's problem-solving model. We use critical thinking at every step, questioning assumptions, checking biases, and evaluating leadership options objectively. So here is just a model of Davis's problem-solving. And that's define the issue clearly, gather information and evidence, analyze data using critical thinking tools, develop possible solutions, choose, implement, and assess the best option. So with that, we go into our SWOT analysis. Our SWOT analysis revealed that the real weakness is not lack of effort, but lack of structured critical thinking and leadership. We believe that opportunities lie in leadership development and shared decision making. So strengths of the Salvation Army include their mission, right? They have a noble mission, community reputation, and dedicated staff. We agreed that some of their weaknesses are limited leadership training, burnout, and reactive communication. Some opportunities here to correct or adjust would be leadership programs for current leadership or those looking to get into leadership positions, staff inclusion, and structured thinking processes. The continued threats of doing nothing include staff loss, declining service quality, and donor fatigue. So for diversity and ethics, critical thinking helps leaders recognize unconscious bias and make ethical decisions that reflect fairness across all cultural and personal differences. Another way to say that would be staff and clients come from diverse backgrounds, cultural, economic, religious, what have you, and leadership must apply critical thinking in order to avoid bias and ensure equity. On the other side, ethical leadership involves transparency, fairness, and respect. Again, all these are difficult to do in times when you have untrained leadership and the current problems that the Salvation Army is having. So our preferred solution is develop leaders who think before they act, leaders who focus on data, ethics, and empathy. We would also choose to combine critical thinking with transformational leadership principles. So more specifically, we would train leaders in reflective decision making and emotional intelligence, introduce structured critical thinking workshops and team debriefs, leadership theories, transformational and servant leadership, and then our expected results from implementing this would be stronger communication, engagement, and retention. Our alternative solution, kind of relative to participative leadership and staff feedback system, this uses critical thinking collectively, encouraging multiple viewpoints and reducing groupthink. This would include staff engagement, enhancing organizational problem solving. So we would create staff-led communities to provide input on policies and processes. We would use anonymous feedback tools for honest communication. And I think in a culture like the Salvation Army where half your staff is paid, half is volunteer, that anonymous feedback is very important because in a culture where you value your paid employees more than your volunteers, this kind of provides that anonymity that could, lead to getting through to a problem that could be affecting your entire team. Leadership theory on this one would be participative and shared leadership, and again, our expected results, more collaboration and inclusive decision making. So both solutions we came to the conclusion are viable. The leadership program may require more resources, but it offers greater long-term change. The feedback system is easier to start, but depends on consistent follow-through. So again, with the leadership development program, we could do moderate funding, strong impact, sustainable with ongoing training. And then with the staff feedback system, it'd be a low cost, high engagement, sustainable if supported by leadership type of deal. Our implementation plan, so what we collectively decided was that critical thinking doesn't stop at planning. It continues right into implementation, and leaders must evaluate results and adapt decisions based on evidence. So the first thing is we'd gain leadership and donor approval, pilot the training with mid-level managers, gather data pre and post implementation, and use critical reflection to adjust the approach. Personal reflection and feasibility. So again, even if we as a group, obviously we can't control the whole system, we can start by applying critical thinking to leadership and asking questions and modeling fair decision making. So as a future leader, model open, reflective communication, like I mentioned. Full implementation requires executive level buy-in, and change begins with individuals practicing daily critical thinking. Our big takeaway message, the key takeaway from that our group came up with is leadership isn't just about authority, but it's about thinking, listening, and acting ethically. Critical thinking transforms how leaders lead and how teams thrive. And so, again, we think that critical thinking is essential for effective ethical leadership. We think that reflection leads to clarity, fairness, and better teamwork. Transformational and participative leadership thrive when leaders think critically. And we think change begins with awareness and small, consistent actions. These are the references used throughout our presentation. We appreciate anybody who's listening on the other end and hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you.